My husband was cheating on me with my identical twin sister. But here is the thing. He did not know we were twins. He thought we were two completely different women. And when my sister and I figured out what was going on, we did not cry. We did not scream. We sat down at my kitchen table, poured 2 glasses of wine, and came up with a plan that would take everything he had, all $50 million of it. If this story hits different, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. My name is Claire and my twin sister's name is Elise. We are identical in every way. Same height, 5'7", same honey blonde hair, same green eyes, same small scar above the left eyebrow from a bicycle accident when we were 9. The only way most people can tell us apart is that Elise wears her hair shorter and I tend to dress more conservatively. But with the right clothes and a haircut, we are interchangeable. We have been fooling people our entire lives. I married Alexander Petrov in 2018. Alex was born in Russia, raised in London, and made his fortune in commercial real estate development. He owned buildings in Manhattan, condos in Miami, hotels in Dubai, and a villa in the south of France. His net worth, according to Forbes, was approximately $52 million. He was 46 when we married. I was 31. Before you judge me, I did not marry him for his money. I mean, the money was nice, obviously, but I genuinely loved Alex. He was cultured, intelligent, and when he focused his attention on you, it felt like being in a spotlight. He spoke 4 languages, played piano, and he made me laugh. We met at an art gallery opening in London, and he pursued me relentlessly for 3 months before I agreed to go on a date. He was persistent in a way that felt flattering, not creepy. At least, that is how I felt at the time. We had a beautiful wedding in Tuscany. 200 guests, a 10-piece orchestra, a dress by Vera Wang. It was the kind of wedding that ends up in magazines, and in fact it did. Harper's Bazaar ran a 2-page spread. My sister Elise was my maid of honor. She and Alex got along well at the wedding, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. They danced once, made small talk, and that was it. After the wedding, Alex and I settled into a penthouse in Manhattan. He traveled constantly for business. London, Dubai, Singapore, Geneva. I would go with him sometimes, but more often I stayed home. I was working on a master's degree in art history at Columbia, and I had my own life in New York. Elise lived in Boston. She was a freelance graphic designer, single, and happy about it. We talked on the phone almost every day and saw each other every few weeks. She would come to New York for a weekend, or I would go up to Boston. We were best friends. We had always been best friends. In early 2021, things started to change. Alex became more distant. He was on his phone constantly, always in another room. His business trips got longer and more frequent. He went to Boston 3 times in 2 months, which was strange because he had no business interests there. When I asked about it, he said he was looking at a development opportunity near the waterfront. I believed him. Then one night in April, I was doing laundry and found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was from a restaurant in Boston called Menton. $280 for dinner for 2. I knew that restaurant. Elise had mentioned wanting to go there. My heart started pounding, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Alex was in Boston for business. He probably took a client to dinner, but something nagged at me. Something I could not shake. The next time Elise called me, I mentioned casually that Alex had been spending a lot of time in Boston. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long pause. Then Elise said, quote, "Claire, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not freak out," end quote. My blood ran cold. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. And Elise said, quote, "I have been seeing someone. A guy named Sasha. He is Russian. He is in real estate, and Claire, I think he might be your husband," end quote. The room spun. I sat down on the edge of the bed and listened as my sister told me everything. She had met Sasha at a coffee shop in Back Bay in January. He was charming, handsome, well-dressed, and he spoke with a Russian accent. He told her his name was Sasha Volkov, that he was divorced, and that he was in Boston temporarily for a real estate project. He asked for her number. She gave it to him. They had been dating for 3 months. He took her to expensive restaurants. He bought her flowers. He rented a suite at the 4 Seasons when she visited him. He told her he was falling in love with her. And the whole time, he had no idea that the woman he was dating in Boston was the identical twin of the woman he was married to in New York. I asked her every question I could think of. What did he look like? She described Alex exactly. What car did he drive? A black Mercedes G-Wagon, the same one Alex drove in New York. Where did they meet? A coffee shop in Back Bay. She showed me his texts. The writing style was identical to Alex's. The same slightly formal phrasing, the same way he used ellipses instead of periods, the same habit of ending messages with, quote, "thinking of you," end quote. It was him. There was zero doubt. He had used a different name, a different backstory. He told Elise he had never been married. He told her he was 42, shaving 4 years off his age. He wore different cologne when he was with her and kept a separate wardrobe at his Boston hotel. The man had created an entirely separate identity for his affair, and he had accidentally chosen the one woman on earth who looked exactly like his wife. You cannot make this up. You literally cannot make this up. When Elise finished telling me, we both sat in silence for a long time. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd, so cosmically ridiculous, that laughter was the only sane response. My husband was cheating on me with my twin, and he thought he was cheating with a stranger. Elise started laughing too. Then we both started crying. Then we started planning. Our first instinct was to confront Alex immediately. Elise wanted to show up at our penthouse while Alex was home and just stand next to me. Imagine his face, she said. 2 identical women standing in his living room, both knowing his secrets. It would have been spectacular, but I wanted more than a spectacular moment. I wanted justice. Alex had betrayed me. He had lied to my sister, and he had a $52 million fortune that under our prenuptial agreement I was barely entitled to any of. The prenup was airtight. Alex's lawyer had made sure of that. In the event of a divorce, I would receive $2 million and nothing more, unless I could prove fault, specifically adultery, fraud, or criminal behavior. If I could prove any of those, the prenup had a clause that entitled me to 50% of all marital assets. 50% of $52 million. $26 million. That was the number that kept me up at night. But proving adultery was not enough. I needed to prove it in a way that was irrefutable, documented, and so damning that no judge would side with him. And to do that, I needed my sister's help. Elise was all in. She was furious, not just at Alex for lying to her, but at herself for not seeing it sooner. She said, quote, "He looked at me across a candlelit table and told me I was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He said the exact same thing to you at your wedding. I saw the video. I cannot believe I fell for it," end quote. We spent 3 days just talking. Elise drove down to New York and stayed at a hotel near our penthouse. We met at a coffee shop in the Village, somewhere Alex would never go because he thought downtown was, quote, beneath him, end quote. We sat across from each other, 2 identical faces with the same furious expression, and we mapped out every lie Alex had told us. The list was staggering. Different names, different backstories, different promises. He had told me he was a faithful husband. He had told Elise he was a single man looking for love. He had told both of us we were the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, probably using the same inflection and the same practiced smile. The man was not just a cheater. He was running parallel lives with the organizational skill of a project manager. We came up with a plan. We called it Operation Mirror. The rules were simple. Elise would continue dating Sasha as if nothing had changed. I would continue being Alex's loving wife. But behind the scenes, we would switch, regularly. Elise would come to New York and be Claire while I went to Boston and was, quote, Elise, end quote. We would gather evidence, recordings, photos, texts, financial documents, everything we needed to blow up the prenup and take him for everything. The first switch happened in May of 2021. Elise came to New York on a Friday while Alex was supposedly at a business dinner. She stayed in the penthouse, wore my clothes, and when Alex came home at midnight smelling like my sister's perfume, she greeted him at the door with a kiss. He did not notice a thing. He looked at my twin sister, a woman he was having an affair with using a fake name, and he called her Claire, kissed her goodnight, and went to sleep. The next morning, Elise texted me, quote, "He snores worse than you described. Also, he leaves toothpaste in the sink. You should divorce him for that alone," End quote. Over the next 4 months, we switched 11 times. We developed a system. We had a shared Google Doc where we logged everything. What Alex had said, what he had done, what mood he was in, what lies he had told. We called it the Alex Bible. It was 47 pages long by the end. I went to Boston 3 times as Elise. I had dinner with Alex at fancy restaurants while he called me sweetheart and told me about his, quote, boring wife back in New York, who was always at the library, end quote. He told me, his actual wife sitting right across from him, that his marriage was loveless and that he stayed in it only for the tax benefits. I smiled and sipped my wine and resisted the urge to flip the table. Meanwhile, Elise was in New York being me. She attended a charity gala on Alex's arm. She signed my name on a guest book. She smiled for photos that ended up in society columns. She played the role of Claire Petrov so convincingly that even Alex's business partner, a man named Harrison who had known me for 3 years, did not notice the difference. One night, while I was in Boston pretending to be Elise, Alex took me to a restaurant and ordered a $300 bottle of wine. He held my hand across the table and told me, quote, Elise, you are everything my wife is not. She is cold, she is distant, she does not understand me. You make me feel alive, end quote. I wanted to say, I am your wife, you idiot. But instead I smiled, squeezed his hand and said, quote, tell me more about her. What do you not like about her, end quote. And he did. He listed every complaint he had about me, Claire, while talking to me, Claire, who was pretending to be Elise. The meta layers of deception were so thick that even I got confused sometimes. Elise had her own surreal moments. One morning, while posing as me in New York, she woke up to Alex bringing her breakfast in bed. He made pancakes, kissed her forehead, and said, quote, I love you, Claire. You know that, right? End quote. Elise said she smiled, said she loved him too, and ate the pancakes while internally screaming. But the real purpose of Operation Mirror was not just emotional revenge, it was financial. During our switches, we gained access to Alex's home office, his computer, his files. I had his passwords because he was careless. He used the same one for everything. Our wedding anniversary followed by an exclamation point. How romantic. What I found in those files changed everything. Alex was not just cheating on me, he was hiding money, lots of it. He had offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Cyprus, containing over $18 million that were not declared in our prenuptial agreement or in any financial disclosure. He had shell companies funneling rental income away from his taxable estate. He had a property in Thailand that was not on any of his official portfolios. And then I found the Thai property records, and when I translated the ownership documents, the name listed as co-owner was a woman named Anang Petrov, co-owner Petrov, the same last name as my husband. My husband had another wife. I called Elise immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I told her what I found. A property in Phuket, Thailand, jointly owned by Alexander Petrov and Anang Petrov. The purchase date was 2015, 3 years before he married me. Elise went quiet. Then she said, quote, Claire, that means he was already married when he married you. Your marriage might not even be legal, end quote. She was right. If Alex had married this Anang woman in Thailand and never divorced her, then our marriage was bigamous. Void. Everything, the prenup, the property agreements, the tax filings, all of it built on a lie. I needed proof. I hired a private investigator, a former MI6 officer named James Whitfield who specialized in international cases. James was expensive, $12,000 as a retainer, but he was worth every penny. Within 3 weeks, he had everything. Anang was 38 years old. She and Alex had been married in a civil ceremony in Bangkok in 2014. They had 3 children together, a son named Dimitri who was 8, a daughter named Lily who was 6, and another son named Anton who was 4. Alex visited them 4 times a year, usually during his, quote, business trips to Singapore, end quote. He supported them with money from his offshore accounts. The Thai property was a 5-bedroom villa on the beach, worth approximately $2.3 million. Alex had an entire family that I knew nothing about, an entire life, a wife, 3 children, a beach house, and he had married me on top of it with a prenup designed to protect his assets, while hiding $18 million offshore and maintaining a second household in Southeast Asia. The private investigator sent me a folder. It was thick. Inside were photos of Alex playing with children on a beach. My husband, playing with children I did not know existed. He was smiling in those photos, a genuine smile, not the polished one he wore at charity galas. He looked happy. He looked like a father. I stared at those photos for hours. I memorized every detail. The children's faces, the house in the background, the woman standing on the porch watching them play. His other life was not a fling or a mistake. It was a fully formed existence that he had maintained for 7 years while looking me in the eye every day. I was not sad anymore. I was not even angry. I was glacial. I was operating at a level of cold, clear-headed fury that I did not know I was capable of. And I was going to take him for everything. Gloria, Elise, and I flew to Thailand in September of 2021. Yes, I went to Thailand to meet my husband's other wife. I know how that sounds. But I needed to see it for myself, and I needed a Nong on my side. We found her at the villa in Phuket. She was beautiful, petite, dark-haired, warm smile. She answered the door with a baby on her hip, which threw me because James's report had only mentioned 3 children. Turns out she was pregnant again. Through a translator, I told Anong who I was. I showed her my marriage certificate. I showed her photos of me and Alex at our wedding. I showed her the prenup, the financial records, the offshore accounts. Anong listened with a face that went from confused to horrified to enraged. She did not cry, she got very still and very quiet, and then she said something in Thai that the translator rendered as, quote, "I am going to destroy him," end quote. In that moment, I knew we were going to get along just fine. Anong told us her story. Alex had married her in 2014 and promised her a life in London. That promise never materialized. He kept her in Thailand, visited a few times a year, sent money regularly, and told her he was building a business that would allow them to be together permanently. She had believed him for 7 years. She had raised 3 children, almost 4, essentially alone, waiting for a man who had married another woman and was sleeping with her twin sister on the side. What struck me most about Anong was her strength. She had raised 3 children essentially alone, in a foreign country relative to her husband, waiting for a man who was never going to keep his promises. She had trusted him completely, and when I showed her the evidence that he had married another woman, she did not collapse. She did not fall apart. She got angry and she got organized. She pulled out a folder, her own folder, full of financial records, property documents, and correspondence with Alex. She had been keeping records for years because something had always felt off. She just had not known what it was. We sat on her patio, watching her children play in the garden, the translator working overtime between us, and we laid everything out. By the end of that afternoon, we had a complete picture of Alexander Petrov's double life. 2 wives, 2 homes, 2 sets of children, 2 identities, and a financial empire built on secrets and offshore accounts. We formed an alliance, Claire, Elise, and Anong, the 3 wives, as Elise called us, though technically only 2 of us were married to him, and possibly neither marriage was legal. I flew back to New York with enough evidence to bury Alex 10 times over. My attorney, a Manhattan divorce lawyer named Rebecca Torres who charged $900 an hour and was worth every cent, put together the case: bigamy, tax fraud, offshore asset concealment, perjury on financial disclosures, violation of the prenuptial agreement. We did not file immediately. Rebecca wanted to wait until she had coordinated with the IRS, who were very interested in those offshore accounts, and with the district attorney's office, who were very interested in the bigamy. In November of 2021, everything was ready. But I wanted one more thing. I wanted Alex to sign a new will. This was Elise's idea. She pointed out that Alex was paranoid about his health. He had a heart condition, nothing serious, but he took medication for it, and he was always talking about his, quote, mortality, end quote, usually after his 3rd glass of scotch. Elise suggested that I play on that fear and convince him to update his estate plan. So I did. I told Alex I was worried about him. I said I had been reading about heart disease and that I wanted to make sure we were protected. I cried. I held his hand. I told him that if anything ever happened to him, I wanted to know that I would be taken care of. Alex, who was many things but not emotionally perceptive, was moved. He called his estate attorney the next day. The new will left everything to, quote, my wife and the mother of my children, end quote. It did not specify a name, it said wife, singular, and it said mother of my children, which as it turned out described Anong a lot more accurately than it described me. Everything was in place. In January of 2022, I told Alex I wanted to go on a trip together. Just the two of us. A romantic getaway. He chose a ski resort in Aspen. We flew out on a Friday. On Saturday morning, while Alex was on the slopes, federal agents showed up at his hotel room with a warrant. He was arrested on charges of bigamy, tax evasion, and wire fraud related to the offshore accounts. He was handcuffed in his ski boots. One of the agents later told Rebecca it was the most expensive arrest he had ever made, given the price of the ski outfit alone. His custom Montclair ski jacket was worth $4,000. His goggles were Oakley limited edition. Even in handcuffs, he looked like a catalog model. Some people just cannot stop being wealthy, even when they are being arrested for fraud. I watched from the lobby of the resort as they walked him through in handcuffs. He saw me standing there, and for a moment confusion crossed his face. Then understanding. Then something I had never seen from Alex before. Fear. He opened his mouth to say something, but the agents kept moving. The last thing I saw was the back of his head as they put him in the unmarked SUV. I called Elise from the resort lobby. She answered on the first ring. I said, quote, "It is done," end quote. She said, quote, "How do you feel?" end quote. I said, quote, "I feel like I just had the best ski trip of my life," end quote. She laughed so hard she started coughing. While Alex was being processed in Colorado, Rebecca filed for annulment in New York, not divorce but annulment, on the grounds that the marriage was fraudulently entered into and was legally void due to prior existing marriage. The annulment would void the prenup entirely, meaning the $2 million cap was gone. Everything was on the table. The legal proceedings took over a year. Alex hired the most expensive lawyers money could buy, but the evidence was overwhelming. The offshore accounts were frozen by the IRS. The bigamy charge was straightforward because marriage records from both ceremonies existed. The tax evasion case was built on years of hidden income. The courtroom scenes were something else entirely. Alex, who had always been the most composed person in any room, looked diminished in his prison jumpsuit. His hair was graying, he had lost weight. The confidence that had once filled every space he entered was gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who had run out of lies. His defense team tried every angle. They argued the Thai marriage was not recognized under U.S. law. The judge disagreed. They argued the offshore accounts were standard business practice. The IRS disagreed. They argued the prenup should still be honored. Rebecca demolished that argument in 15 minutes. Every strategy crumbled under the weight of evidence that Elise and I had spent months collecting. In the end, Alex pleaded guilty to 1 count of bigamy and 1 count of tax fraud to avoid a trial on the more serious wire fraud charges. He was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. His assets were partially seized by the IRS, but approximately $31 million remained after taxes, penalties, and legal fees. The estate battle was epic. Rebecca argued that since the New York marriage was void, I was entitled to equitable distribution as a defrauded partner. Anong's Thai lawyers argued that as the only legal wife, she was entitled to the majority of the estate. And the will, the one that said, quote, "My wife and the mother of my children," end quote, was contested by everyone. It took 18 months of negotiations. In the end, the settlement was split. Anong received $12 million and the Thai villa. I received $11 million and the Manhattan penthouse. The remaining assets went to pay legal fees, IRS penalties, and a trust fund for all 4 of Anong's children, including the baby who was born during the proceedings, a little girl named Sarai. Elise got nothing directly from the settlement, but I gave her $2 million from my share. She had earned it. Without her, none of this would have happened. She used the money to open a graphic design studio in Boston. It is called Mirror Image Design. I love her sense of humor. Alex got out of prison in 2024. He is living in a rented apartment in New Jersey. His real estate empire is gone. His Forbes listing is gone. His reputation is gone. He tried to contact me once, about 6 months after his release. He sent a letter to the penthouse. It said, quote, "I never meant to hurt anyone. I was just trying to have everything," end quote. I did not reply, but I kept the letter. Sometimes I read it when I need a reminder of why I did what I did. He was just trying to have everything. Well, so was I. And I got it. Anong and I still talk. We video call every few weeks. Her kids call me Auntie Claire. Elise visited them in Phuket last Christmas and taught Dimitri how to surf. It is the strangest extended family in the world, but it works. And sometimes, when Elise and I are together, we look at each other and shake our heads in disbelief. We were born identical. We have spent our whole lives being mistaken for each other. And in the end, it was that resemblance, the thing that used to annoy us as teenagers, that brought down a man who thought he could have everything. He played a game with two women who shared one face. And in the end, that face was the last thing he saw before he lost it all.